What is up, guys? Welcome back to Ran When Parked. You know, something funny has gone on with this Land Cruiser that I haven't really talked about, but now I'm going to. And that is that twice now it has randomly decided to just puke out all its fluids, seemingly out of nowhere. The first time, I had filled up all the fluids. It was like that for like months, just sitting in the shop over here. I was making videos. Life was good. Everything was great. I came in one day and the rear main seal had just decided like overnight to pop like a water balloon and let 1.5 gallons of oil spill all over my floor. And that was a little bit annoying. I didn't really think about it too much. I pulled the engine. I put a new rear main seal in. I think we actually talked about that on the channel. However, this morning I came out and found that the truck had decided to puke all its trans fluid out. Now, I put this trans fluid in with a new pan and a new drain plug and a new drain plug seal. I don't even know, maybe a year ago, a year and a half ago. We drove it. I made a video about that. We did all the body work and everything. We painted it. It was sitting outside. Everything was good. I bring it back in. It sits here for about 3 months. And then randomly, last night, this was not here yesterday, my TH350 decided today was the day, and it just let it all go. And it essentially turned my nice clean garage into a Superfund site overnight. I can't help but feel like the EPA is going to kick down my door and arrest me sometime soon. You know, can't help but think maybe this is a sign. Maybe instead of calling this thing Jordy the 40, we should call it Deepwater Horizon. Let that simmer, guys. Let me know in the comments how you feel about that. Maybe this is a sign. Land Cruiser wants a name change. So guys, before we get started in this video, you want to hear a fun fact? Did you know that the average across all YouTube channels for the ratio between subscribers and views is about 0.5%? That means that in order to get 1 subscriber, you need to get 200 views. So for every 200 people that come and watch your videos, only 1 actually hits that subscribe button. Can you guys believe that? Now the good news is, my channel, Ran When Parked here, which we all love, is doing a lot better than that. It's about 1%. So for every 100 views, I get 1 subscriber. Now that sounds a lot better. It is, I am, trending about double the average. However, the problem with that is that if your goal was 10,000 subscribers, which mine is, that means you need 1 million views to get that 10,000 subscribers. And that is a tough road to travel, obviously. That is really, really difficult. It's not like it used to be on YouTube. It is a whole lot harder to make it now than it was before. That's for sure. And that is why I need all of your help. If you are watching this channel right now, do me a solid. Hit that freaking subscribe button right now. It's like right down here. I even made it really easy for you guys. I made a watermark. It's down in like the lower right hand corner right there. And if you just hover over that thing, you can just hit the subscribe button. And I know you have time because in about 2 seconds here, I'm going to shut up and the intro is going to happen. And that's going to give you like 10 seconds where you don't have to do anything. You can just hover right on down there. You can press subscribe and you could do your part to help me beat the YouTube algorithm and get to my goals and subscribers faster than I probably should. All right, gang. So what are we doing today? Well, first and foremost, I'm going to clean up this dump that I made in here, all the wiring and parts and everything, because it's time to put a new steering column in. I'd like to continue wiring it, but in order to do that, I kind of have to wire in the steering column because now we're going to do all the switches and stuff. Now, I was going to use the Toyota steering column. However, I didn't like how it fit with my seats. Maybe we talked about that at another time. I don't remember. But either way, I bought a new steering column, an aftermarket one. Same one that's in my 63 Ford, the Honey Badger, actually, except black. That one's stainless steel. And we're going to install that today. It's a tilt column. It's got all the good stuff. It's got a GM plug, which will plug right into this harness, and that's awesome. However, in order to position that, we need to put the seats in. So first things first, we're going to clean this thing out. We're going to put our seats back into it. We're going to sit in it, put the steering column in, figure out where we want that to be, lock it down, and then we're going to make a new steering shaft. I have a new steering coupler here, Borgeson joint. and then we'll see where we're at. I do have some other stuff we can maybe do, but I don't want to get you guys too excited because we might run out of time. These videos are always longer than I think we're going to do. So let's get moving, put the seats in, clean up the interior, get cracking. All right, guys, so driver's seat is back in, super comfortable. I love this thing. For anyone wondering, this is actually out of like a 18 or 19 Jeep. I guess that's a JK. I don't know anything about Jeeps. Wrangler Willys edition. So they're like manual, but they're really comfortable still. And they kind of like live up to the spirit of the Land Cruiser because they're waterproof and everything. These things were awesome. I got them on Facebook Marketplace. And obviously I had to make custom mounts and everything, but it worked out really well, So next thing we're going to have to talk about here is the steering column, which is obviously missing. So the factory mounts all work with the fiberglass tub. This is the factory pedal box, and it is actually the column mount too. I don't know if I can show you guys that. I guess I kind of can. But anyway, the bolts go through right here, and there is a bracket that holds it up into this V shape right here. And fortunately for me, the factory steering column was like 1 3/4 inches, and the one I bought is like 2 inch, so close enough. I just have to kind of bend the bracket a little bit to make it fit a 2 inch, shaft inside of it. And then down here, this thing is already drilled and stuff for the original FJ40, I guess we'll say firewall mount, and I am going to reuse that. Let me show you how. So there it is right there. Now let me explain this thing. The old steering column had a plate on the bottom that would bolt into these 4 screws, and I think it's kind of redundant. Like, it could mount solid to this thing and not bolt in. It would work the exact same way because this bolts in from the inside. So if you take the steering column out, you could weld it to this and then pull the steering column out. So what I am going to do is weld all 4 of those up eventually, maybe not today. I'm going to drill a 2.5 inch hole where this, like, I have no idea what that is. 1 inch hole is maybe. And then I'm going to stick the steering column right through that 1 inch hole, either weld it up or just seal it off. It depends. We'll find out once we get there. And then I am just going to mount this right in the firewall just as it was. So it'll do the exact same job it did before. It'll be a nice finishing piece. It'll seal the whole thing up. I'll paint it black. It'll look good. However, it will be adapted to the new model steering column. So first things first, we are going to drill this thing out with a hole saw to a 2 inch hole. I actually got a 1 3/4 inch hole saw because we all know they wander a little bit. And what I'm going to have to do to get that centered is weld a little piece of sheet metal over that so I can re-drill the pilot. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to weld a piece of sheet metal over it, re-drill the pilot hole, put a 2 inch roughly hole in that. I might have to trim it out a little bit, and then we'll mount it back in the firewall. And then the thing we're going to do after that is this is what I was talking about. This is the top mount. This is for like a 1 3/4 inch steering column shaft. I have a 2 inch steering column shaft. So what I'm going to do is find something around here, pipe or whatever, that is 2 inches. I'm going to hammer this thing over it. I'm going to straighten it back out, and then it will miraculously have been modified to fit a 2 inch shaft. So let's get moving on that. Alright guys, so what I've done here is essentially make a drill bushing the simplest way that I know how, and that is I welded a washer with an ID that fit the pilot drill inside a washer with an OD that fit the existing hole, and just tacked them in there. And through that, I can now just drop my hole saw right into there. It fits right into the hole, and I can drill this thing out, and it'll be centered in a pretty good spot. And it still walks a little bit, which is good because I bought a 1 3/4 drill and I need to make a 2-inch hole. So get an 1/8 inch on either side, roughly. Probably get just about a 2-inch hole out of it. So let's drill it out. Alright guys, so that's the end of that. Hole is in it. I did have to trim it a little bit more. It didn't quite drill it to 2 inches, but that's okay. Trimmed it a little bit, works perfectly. Next thing we're going to have to work on is this bracket and the corresponding top portion of that bracket. Probably not the top portion. I think that'll be fine. This bracket we're going to have to work on though. And I do have just the thing right here, a 2-inch trailer hitch ball. It's like brand new. And I think what I'm going to do is clamp this thing in the vise and just hammer this thing over it to expand it a little bit, and then I'll just straighten the 2 arms out so it works again, and then that'll pretty much be the end of that. So let's modify this thing real quick. So our plate in the firewall is down there, already modified, loosely bolted in, not tight yet. We have our brackets for right here, all modified and ready to go. We have bolts already started in the holes, and we have our steering column here. So, time to get this bracket started in there, get the steering column slid down in, and see how this whole thing fits with the seat. Alright guys, so it's in, but it's not centered, and I think that's because, like so many other things in this fiberglass tub, the guy who worked on this before I got it put the holes in the wrong spot. So I'm going to go ahead and take this thing back apart and just do it right the first time, and I'm going to just notch these holes, slot the holes so they go a little bit towards the driver's side, and that way I can move this shaft a little bit towards the driver's side, because when I build it the first time, I want to build it right, and I want to get it in the right spot. So I'm going to pull this apart and do it right. And just like that, now it is dead centered on the notch in the body. It's in the right spot. Hallelujah. My only problem now is that this thing is like a little long out here. I don't know. I don't have a steering wheel for it yet, but my wife actually wants like the same steering wheel that's in the Honey Badger, which is kind of weird, but it makes life easy because I can just go pull the steering wheel out of that thing and put it in this thing, and then we will see kind of like how it works with my knees and stuff and where I fit. I mean, you know, this thing's all built for my wife, and she's much smaller than me, but, I mean, it's a Land Cruiser. It's more like a tractor than it is like a car. Obviously, I'm going to be driving it the vast majority of the time. We're really building it for me, right? So I'm going to throw that steering wheel in real quick, and then we'll see how it all kind of sits, and once we're good there, then we will build the steering shaft in the front, and we'll be off to the races on this steering system. So let's throw a wheel in this thing. Alright guys, so steering wheel is in, at least temporarily, and I actually like the wheel minus the wood rim. I think I'll get the exact same one, but with black. I think it just fits the Land Cruiser better. These are from Eddy Motorsports, and they're pretty expensive, but they're really, really nice wheels. So I can get this thing with black. I already looked it up. I also went ahead and just threw the gas pedal in, just temporarily, just to see like where my foot landed and how this all worked. And you know what? It's pretty comfortable. I'm actually pretty happy. Before I can commit, I got to wait for my wife to kind of sit in it and move the seat and get herself comfortable and make sure everything works. But it's all pretty good. So now that that's done, let's make a steering shaft and wrap this up once and for all. Okay, so as far as the steering shaft, I went ahead and put our Borgeson joint on here on the end of the steering column itself. And just for the record, guys, this thing, you can see it does move around a little bit. I think I'm just going to put like 4 tacks, 1 on each corner, and then seam seal the rest of it. So it's just sealed off. And then I'll paint this whole thing black, and that'll be beautiful. Now, here's the shaft. If you guys remember, we already had this all set up going into our Saginaw power steering box up front, and it is a little bit too long. I don't know, call it an inch, something like that, right? Yeah. So we're going to have to shorten it. Now, the only safe way to shorten the shaft, or that is to say the only acceptable way for me to shorten a shaft, would be to cut it, cut the length out of it, shorten it up, weld it back together, grind that down, sleeve it with another pipe, weld both ends of that pipe. Probably overkill, but overkill is good when you're talking about steering components. So that's exactly what we're going to do. I'm going to cut, probably closer to like 1.5 inches out of this thing. And then I will weld it back together. I will sleeve it with another pipe that fits it tight. And then we'll clean this whole thing up, paint it black, and get it fully installed in there. So let's get moving. Alright guys, so since this thing is solid, I'm actually not going to sleeve it. I have a lot of material to work with, so I'm just going to mill this, or turn this thing off so it's definitely flat, and then I'm going to put a really heavy bevel on it, and then I'm going to fill that entire bevel up with weld. That way it's welded virtually all the way through, and I will be really, really confident in that without the sleeve. If I don't like it later, I can always sleeve it. So I'm going to chuck this thing up in the lathe, I'm going to turn it down a little bit, and then I'm going to bevel it. Alright, so now that we have our shafts all set up, what I did was clamped it in a milling vise because it has a precision bottom and precision jaws. So if they're both on the bottom and they're both clamped in the jaws, then I know they're pretty much concentric, right? So I have those things face to face. I know it's kind of hard to see, I don't have much light over here. But what I'm going to do now is just get down there with the welder and just get that thing tacked so I can pull it out and then weld it all the way around. I will fill the beveled area with weld all the way around, get good penetration, and then we'll turn it down, and you will never know it was ever like that before. So let's wrap the shaft up. Alright guys, so this shaft, because it has U-joints on both ends, absolutely does not have to be perfectly straight. However, I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, so I chucked it up in the lathe just to see how straight it is. It's pretty good. As you can see, it wobbles a little bit, and I am actually going to find that high point, and I'm going to tap it a little bit and get it right. Because eventually, I'm going to put a live center in it from here, because this is already center drilled on this end, and I'm going to turn the whole thing down to get it perfect. So, I am going to want this thing to be almost perfectly straight just for that to work out right. So, I'm going to get it straight real quick, and then I'm just going to fill this thing with weld, and I'll show you guys what it looks like. Alright guys, so she fits. I just got it kind of mocked up in there. Good clearance on the manifold, good clearance on the frame, the hoses for the power steering. Obviously I have to kind of collapse this thing together a little bit more, but that's okay. Everything's pretty good. So just got to pull it back out and turn it down, and we're off to the races. Alright boys, so there's all our parts. The shaft came out beautiful, the two joints all painted up, and this shaft, you can't even tell where it was welded. I mean, I can kind of feel it, I guess, but not really. It really came out kind of perfect. I'm glad I spent so much time on the lathe. So we're just going to slap this together, and I'll show you what that looks like all finished. Alright, so it's all installed, all painted black, looks good. I got to get some stainless hardware for these two spline joints, but no big deal. The clearance is beautiful. It's got a bunch of room around everything. It used to hit this manifold and it doesn't anymore, obviously because the column is longer and we moved that pivot point down. So that worked out really, really well. You can't even tell where it's welded. Life is good. I even tacked the column into the bracket down here, just in a couple spots. When I pull it apart to paint it, I will tack it in the third spot, so I got, you know, all three sides of it done. But it is really sturdy and in there well, so finally, the steering column's all done. Guys, that's all I got for you today. It's going to be the end of the episode. However, we have a ton of content coming up. I actually got all the front body panels in today, the stuff that I didn't have already. So I'm going to start right now filming, putting the whole front clip on this thing, building a battery mount, putting the ECU in, looming up the harness, finishing up the wiring, putting in the tail lights. We're kind of in the home stretch on this project, so don't go too far, because there's going to be a bunch of videos coming. I'm going to be posting at 1 o'clock on Saturdays every single week, and also in some situations a second video every week. So hit that subscribe button, like the video, comment below, tell me what you're thinking, and I'll see you guys next time on Ran One Parked.